Happy New Year, guys, from Matheson and Associates. This is Jamie Wasensky and Dana Bellingrad here for First Friday with Family Law. And this month we're going to talk to you about child support. Basically, we're going to go into what the guidelines mean, your worksheets and what that looks like, and what the heck arrears payments are. So we're going to start off with Dana going through the guidelines and what some of the worksheets mean.
Sure. So North Carolina is one of those states where makes it possible for parents to calculate how much they are going to owe in child support because we use the North Carolina guidelines, and that determines it creates a calculator. So the guidelines apply to any family where the combined income of the parents is less than approximately, I think, $400,000 a year, which is most people. So most people are going to fall in that. When you have that, based on the physical custody schedule, so we're not talking about decision making, we're talking about where the children spend the night, overnight, whatever those custodial arrangements are, is going to determine which child support worksheet you're going to be on. And the choices, there's one of three worksheets. So worksheet A and worksheet B are the two that are most commonly used and are going to apply in most people's cases. So worksheet A is where a parent has primary physical custody of the children, and that's where you have at least 243 overnights. The primary custodian has that, and the other parent has less than 123 overnights per year per child. So that's a worksheet A. And then any shared custody model, which is going to be anything from the parent who has less custody, as long as they have 123 overnights per year per child, that will move them over to a worksheet B, and that's between 123 overnights and 242 overnights, which is approximately in the range of between 35 and 65% custody. So obviously 50-50 custody, that's flatly within the worksheet B case, but that's the shared custody model.
Yeah.
The other model, or the other worksheet, is a worksheet C, and that's a very rarely, I say rare, I rarely have ever had to run one of these kind of worksheets, but the circumstances for that is where there have to be at least two kids, and each parent must have primary custody of at least one of the children. So if there's two kids, parent one has primary custody of child one, and parent two has primary custody of child two. If there are three kids, then one parent could have primary custody of two of the kids and the other parent has primary custody of the one. The moment there's any kind of shared custody of any of the children, so even if you have primary of one kid but share custody of any of your other kids with the other parent, that moves you on to a worksheet B. So worksheet B, the moment there's any shared custody, that's the worksheet you're going to use.
Yes, and some other things to consider as it relates to the primary worksheet. So just because a judge says, all right, parent A has primary custody, parent B has secondary custody, it doesn't necessarily mean for worksheet purposes that you're going to automatically operate on a worksheet A. It does in fact mean that you need to count the number of overnights that the judge has given you based on what your order says. So if you were to look up worksheet B, which we're going to recommend that you do here in a moment, just so you understand what we're talking about with worksheets, then when you look at worksheet B, you'll notice that it says at the top joint/shared custody rather than just joint custody, because it's talking about that shared specification that Dana was mentioning. Because what if it is 65-35 or 60-40 or some other percentage of time that you have the children, because that secondary parent really only needs 123 overnights or more to go ahead and bump themselves up into the worksheet B instead of it being on the primary calendar or primary worksheet. So where you can generally find these guidelines is the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services website, and you can go up there and just kind of impute the numbers that are requested and kind of play around with it and see what kind of information you may get if you don't already have child support in place. Do you have anything else on that, Dana?
I think that there are some nuance when people are self-employed, when somebody may not work. There's whether income is imputed, whether there's deviations that can be an unusual circumstance that might make it worth getting some advice of an attorney to help you determine whether your circumstance is one that falls into that. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to give us a call. We'll be happy to discuss that with you.
And our final topic, which
Yes.
is arrears and what the heck those are. So basically, we do get some calls, and people are wondering, why on earth am I still paying for my child who's over the age 18, no longer subject to child support? Technically, you're not subject to the child support, but arrears payments is what they call the debt that you owe from previous child support that you didn't pay. So if you owed $300 a month for 6 months or so and you're still behind on those payments, you will still owe that after the child turns 18. So that debt will still continue, and they will continue to take, or you will have to continue to pay child support in the same monthly award that it was already decided. Like, for example, the $300 a month award. If your child's turned 18, then you will continue to pay $300 a month until that debt is paid off. Everybody just needs to make sure that you guys are paying for the arrears, or paying for your child support on time, that you don't have to worry about any arrears payments. And do your best to keep up with it. I know it's really hard to do in certain situations, but you may find that there are some other consequences as it relates to that, like losing tax benefits and things of that nature, because they automatically go towards that balance. But otherwise, the parent that's receiving the child support will continue to receive that child support no matter how old your child is. And that's not a dischargeable debt that's in even if you file for bankruptcy, it's something that will continue. And it is something that the person owing will still continue to pay at that regular monthly amount. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, actually, yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to mention is a lot of times where arrears comes into play, sometimes people will be accruing an arrears balance before a case has been heard by a judge and a child support order has been entered, but after something's been filed. And so let's say somebody files and asks for child support, but particularly here in Wake County, it could be several months before a judge is actually hearing the case. If you're not making payments of what some amount of child support, you are at risk of, by the time you get to court, the judge is going to determine that you owed the same amount of child support back then, and now you have a past due balance. That's that arrears that could be accumulating up to that point. So generally, our recommendation is even before a court has ordered you to start paying child support, once there's something in process, you're better off starting to pay something to keep that arrears balance below, because we don't want this to be a debt that drags on for you in perpetuity.
And the question, of course, is, what do you pay? Well, again, you guys can try to figure that out with going to the guidelines website. And if you have any other questions, of course, with every single one of these videos, we do have our free consultation code. So the consultation code for this month, and I was going to say this year, but it's just this month because it's already a new year.
We're in a new year.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Is CS125. So if you guys call us and use the code CS125, we'll know you watched this video and you're referencing this video, and you can call and get a free 30-minute consultation. Okay? Otherwise, we will see you next month.
Yep.
Happy
a great
New
day.
Year.